I can hear you. I just want to make sure that you give us permission to tape also, just in case you cut anything off.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay?
Yep. Hi, and welcome to The Curling Show, the podcast that brings you interviews with the sport's top athletes and the people who shape the game. I'm your host, Dean Gemmel, and in this episode, we certainly talk to someone who's shaping the game right now and involved in a high-level debate. But before we get to the interview, allow me to make a couple quick plugs. One, for American curlers, a trip to the 2016 Brier with the special USA package. That's US-EH. This is your chance as an American curler to get discounted tickets, a chance to play in a mini spiel, a special section just for Americans, and a VIP backstage tour of the Brier operations at the operations at the 2016 Brier. It's a great chance, if you're an American curler or an American curling fan, to experience what I believe and what most people believe is the best fan experience in the game, and that's the Brier. So if you want to find out more, there are links in the show notes at thecurlingshow.com, links to the website, or you can go to rocksolidproductions.com/USEH, /USEH. And there's also a Facebook page for USA Package. You can find links there, but links will be in the show notes. And I'll also mention quickly, certainly appropriate with this interview, but my ebook, Brush Like a Badass, Curler's Guide to Great Sweeping. It's everything you need to know to brush like a true badass on the ice, whatever brush you might be using. It's brush agnostic, but you can find links to that book at Amazon. Search for Brush Like a Badass. You'll find it. It's an ebook. It's only $3.99. You can find it on Amazon, on iTunes, in the iBooks section, and on Kobo. I don't think I can put it on a Nook for you yet if you're a Barnes & Noble person, but there you go. All right, with that, plugs out of the way, I'm going to get to this interview. It's an interesting one, and certainly a hot-button discussion right now. He's the president of Hardline Curling, Archie Manavian. Welcome to The Curling Show.
How are you, Dean?
I'm good, thanks. You know, Archie, there seems to be a bit of discussion in the curling world about brushes as of late. Have you heard about this?
I have not.
You have not? Yeah, you want me to fill you in? let me go to some of. Let me fill you in. But let's start. We know the debate. We know what the discussion's been. So let's start with your position on it all, and by extension, the Hardline take on the current discussion and debate and everything else we're hearing.
Well, apparently the debate is on directional fabric. And somehow, I don't know how, the ice pad has been thrown into the mix here. The ice pad does not have directional fabric. It's as simple as that. And I'm not sure what's going on here, but I mean, it seems like we're on a smear campaign here against us. And it is what it is, you know. It's a challenge, but we're going to come through this, and we're going to come through this on top.
Well, let me just say this, Archie. I've been honest on this thing about on my podcast in the past about the fact that Balance Plus has actually given us, my teams, some equipment over the years, but we're certainly not good enough to have any kind of deal like the top teams do. But that's true. But the other thing is I want to add is I have admired how you guys have built a business, and I think in a tough category. And I think that one other thing I've noted, and I've had on, over the years, I've had Arnold Asham on, I've had Aaron Flowers from Goldline on, and I'm happy to have you on now. One of the things I always thought with equipment was that a rising tide lifts all boats. And I always thought that curlers are among the cheapest people out there, and anybody who can get them to spend more money on equipment was someone I respected. So I want to get that out of the way, but this directional fabric debate. Now, you say your brushes don't use directional fabric. Is there any reason why you wouldn't say, well, to heck with it, how about this fabric? Does this work?
Well, why would I say that if we're not directional?
Well, I mean, it would just, would that not resolve the controversy to some degree if you just said, well, if people somehow think our fabric is wrong, well, tell us which fabric we should use instead. We don't think it wouldn't be admitting that it was directional, but it would perhaps resolve it.
Listen, I don't have an issue with that. Okay, there's going to be people out there who are going to be, unhappy with the fabric for whatever reason, and we're going to start making up rules as we go along. That's one thing. But when I've got 3 days to try and find a fabric that's going to please everybody, I think they're going over the edge a little bit here. Why were these concerns not brought up last year? Why were these concerns not brought up last year? It's a simple question. Everybody saw what was going on, which is really nothing. Now it's like, oh my God, look at what the ice pad is doing. Nothing's changed since last year. Why now? Why week 9 of the season? Why would Hardline have 3 days to scramble to come up with a fabric?
Well, I'm not the one to answer that question, I don't think. I don't know. I don't, when you say 3 days, you mean right before the next tour event. I think if I could suggest anything, and I'm not saying, the debate should have been, or the question should have been raised last season, perhaps. I can see your point with that. But I think what prompted a lot of the debate was how Brad Gushue used the hardline brushes, which he switched to this year, how he used them in the first Grand Slam. I think that was sort of what prompted people to wonder what was going on. Would you agree with that, or?
No, I will not agree with that. My personal opinion is that a certain company came out with a brush to try and compete with the ice pad, and it didn't meet expectations. And then their hands were tied, basically. They didn't know what else to do, and this is the only thing they could do, is smear hardline, come out with a new brush or a new head that they knew was illegal. They knew it, and then all the players asked them to stop using it, and then they're like, well, if we're going to stop using ours, then the ice pads have to stop too. Is that a logical way of doing things, in your opinion? Really? Last year, there were no complaints on our brushes. There have been 4 years of play with the ice pad. 3 of them have been with the fabric that we're still using today. And it just seems to me like, they came, basically all the complaints that have been coming have been when they found out that the new brush that the competitor has just doesn't meet up the expectations. And that to me is, I don't know, like last year they were tweeting. I'll give you a perfect tweet. This is like a classic by Richard Hart at Benny Heaps at Balance Plus. It's been a while since I've seen a draw that Benny goes end to end on and comes up short. Must be the toy brooms.
I think that was during the Continental Cup, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then here's another one at Readerama, at Benny Heaps, at Balance Plus, at McEwen Curling. Whoops, have trouble holding line 2. But all of a sudden, we can make the rock fall back 4 feet and curl in another 4 feet for an 8-foot swing. Really? Gushue, whatever he's doing, that's his choice. He feels that with these brooms, that's what he can do. McEwen chooses to use 2 brooms. How many times have we seen, once you get inside the house and the skip asks, pound it, it's only one guy sweeping to bring the rock behind the guard. It's the same thing, but now they're doing it on the whole sheet. Big deal. For that, you think the fabric on the ice pad cover is illegal? Like, are you joking? Really? That's the whole thing? I don't even know what directional fabric is.
Well, as I understand, directional fabric would be the weave in one would be stronger one way than the other, would be higher ridge. And I don't profess to be an expert on fabric, but as I understand it, that's what it'd be. And you're right about the fact, I think, that it's essentially taking, the switching, what the philosophy behind switching to the next level, I guess, right? But to not have the other person sweeping. But yeah, I understand how you feel. I think I don't think there's a lot going on here, and I think my issue has always been that the governing bodies here needed to be ahead of this. And I said in 2010 when the EQ came out that I thought we needed some standards. I said it before that on this podcast that we needed some standards, and I didn't think there were any in place. Now you've said that you had Curling Canada approve your head, so. Tell me about that process.
Well, they've tested it 3 times. What they did was they actually bought 8 brooms from me because they don't want anything for free, and I was willing to give them free brooms. They bought them. They sent them to Edmonton to get tested, and that was it. And I said, okay, so what did you guys find? And they came back with, well, we don't give out our results. I said, all right, well, that's the way it is. That's the way it is. Since then, there's a local Montreal guy who works for the CCA and does testing for them, and he's tested them, and he's tested them 2 years in a row. A few weeks ago, he calls me up and he says, I want to test the exact broom McEwen's team uses. And I told him, whatever we sell off the shelf is the exact broom McEwen uses. It's just got a different paint job. It's the same thing. No, that's impossible. And it was like, I'm telling you. So I didn't have any demos to give him, so I didn't give him any. But, my whole thing with this is just the lack of, due process, basically. It's what the players are making up the rules as we go. And, I'm not somebody who, I want testing. I really do want testing, but I don't even know what you're going to test. Tell me what you're going to test. Tell me what a rock shouldn't do. And if ours doesn't do it, it should be good to go. And it is good to go. Whatever tests they do, I think the competitors should worry about their pads over ours. That's what I think. So if they're ready to say, well, you know what? You can't make it curl X amount of feet, and ours doesn't and theirs does, I want their pads out of the game. See,
well,
Dean, I want to read you some stuff that that's been going around, and
absolutely,
it's here we go. So, I'm a firm believer it is definitely more effective. Okay.
Yeah.
Another one is we noticed on arena ice, it made a huge difference. We could control the rocks a lot more. And this is the best one. New technology in any sport generates debate between those who embrace it and the purists who don't like messing with tradition. We've heard the argument that the high-tech broom head is cheating. We're not buying it. Do you think, based on these 3 comments, that the players should decide quickly that no, that broom head should be restricted? Does that make sense to you?
Well, here's the difficulty I find with all this, and no matter whose pad we're talking about, the difficulty is when the argument is that the broom head, the brush head, is considerably more effective. It's difficult when you're debating someone who says they're too effective, right? That's a difficult argument, and that's the one I don't that's why I've always said, look, I've always said that our governing bodies were way behind on this, and I think now it's biting them in the ass, to be honest, because I really think, it doesn't sound like Curling Canada actually had a process in place, and I actually think it's really up to the World Curling Federation, not Curling Canada, to determine standards for equipment, and I think they should have had a definite, defined process in place. They have the resources to do that. And you know, I don't think one brush over another. I don't know. You know, I've seen, you know, great brushers do great things. So, but I really think there has to be some sort of real scientific analytical analysis of new equipment. I mean, there's nothing in their rules right now that would prevent a guy like me with a shaky delivery from putting a couple pontoons over my shoulders and sliding out. So my issue is the governing bodies are way behind. And now I think, frankly, it's unfair to you as a business person that, yeah, you suddenly have 3 days to come up with new fabric. That's not right. But, you know, I have a hard time understanding how we get anywhere if the argument is like these brooms are really effective and the other guys are saying they're too effective.
I know, but Dean, you gotta realize that, in my opinion, there's a secret agenda behind it. There's a secret agenda behind it. Have you ever thought of, you know, you've been pushing, I think the World Curling Federation should get involved. I totally disagree with that. There's no way the World Curling Federation is going to be doing any testing. If they want to pay an independent body, that's okay with me. Okay, I would have no issues with that. But no governing body is going to be doing the testing. I won't let it.
Well, I don't care really who does it if they have an independent person, but I mean, the United States Golf Association tests equipment. I mean, they test equipment constantly. I don't see what would be the. I mean, I'm not exactly sure what the World Curling Federation bias would be.
Well, the bias would be that a certain company, I'm not going to say who it is, a certain company has got ties at every level of play. And at the World Curling Federation, the patent that you were talking about before from 2010 is owned by somebody who works for the World Curling Federation. Do you see a conflict of interest here somewhere?
I would say that's a conflict of interest, but you know, there's no reason. I mean, the World Curling Federation has resources. There's no reason they couldn't pay an independent consultant to do this. I mean,
apparently, it would be too expensive, according to a newsletter put out by that certain competitor who said, you know, forget about independent testing. You know, there's no money for it. Costs too much. And I was reading that, and I was like, "Wow, beautiful! That's great."
So Balance Plus said it would cost too much. I mean, I'm just trying to. I'm trying to. Some of this is new to me at this point, to be honest. But
I have no comment on who it is, Dean. I'm sure if you did a little research about news feeds that are coming out, I'm sure you could find who it is. But there's such a conflict of interest. The World Curling Federation has somebody working for them who's trying to protect the patent of market share that's eroding on their part. I mean,
that's a pretty big statement. I'll be honest. I mean, I you know, and I'm a guy who has issues with all kinds of governing bodies. That's a pretty big one, though. I'm happy to hear it. To be honest, I think it's interesting. That there's that much conflict at the World Curling Federation, and that perhaps that's impacting what they do.
Well, let me ask you this question. Your governing body is sponsored by a certain equipment manufacturer. How come your governing body doesn't ask all manufacturers to see if, you know, we'd be willing to sponsor?
I think they absolutely should. If you've listened to me on this show, I don't have a lot of respect for USA Curling right now, and I think they should definitely be open to all kinds of understandings. And certainly, our U.S. champion last year used your brushes and still uses your brushes. So, I mean, I'm the last guy to defend USA Curling at the moment. So absolutely the last guy, even though I was on the board for 5 years. I'm not on it because I have issues with how they're operating. But you know, I'd like to hear them weigh in. But certainly USA Curling does not have the resources to test equipment. There's no way. I mean, they can't. But I don't see why they would.
I don't want them to test equipment.
Yeah.
All I'm asking you is, why isn't the door open to other manufacturers to come in and help out, either financially or with equipment or whatever it is?
Well, it absolutely should be. I mean, I've said the same thing about the arrangement we have with Nike. It's not a good arrangement. We should have shopped it around. So if they didn't shop around the equipment deal, that's a mistake. But I don't know if it gets to, what we're talking about too much here. I mean, I debate USA Curling a lot on here, and I don't really want to debate you on this because I feel like a lot of people are in a bad spot here. I mean, gosh, Arnold Ashram has a new broom out that nobody's even mentioned through all this. So I don't know what to think. But
well, tell him to get it tested.
Well, yeah, but I mean, who does he get it tested with? I mean, that's the reality right now. Is nobody's stepping up and saying, "Well, I mean, I live 30 minutes from Far Hills, New Jersey, and they test every new piece of golf equipment that comes out. Now we don't even have to test as much equipment as they do, and thankfully we don't because we don't have the dollars to do it. But I do think that there are reasons to test equipment, and equipment should be tested. I really do. I mean, unfortunately, I think the reality, like I've said, is it's all, too late at this point. And I understand your concern that, hey, you get 3 days to find a new fabric. That is kind of, for lack of a better term, that is bullshit, right? But at the same time, let me throw a quote from you from Brad Gushue where he said, he began using these brushes. I don't know if he said this because it's not part of the quote. It says, began using brooms with directional fabric this season. And this part is in quotes, because we had an absolutely horrible record against teams using this equipment last year, and we felt we were at a competitive disadvantage. So, I mean,
right.
I mean, I don't blame, I think Brad is probably the smartest curler in the game. So I could see why he's the guy who started the one sweeper thing and everything else. So...
Is that from Don Landry?
No, it's on the Sportsnet site.
Okay, because there was a similar quote like that. Because, again, this is why I don't want to do any more interviews or, I'm doing it with you because we're having a debate.
Right.
But interviews with like newspaper guys, they pick and choose what they want to put in. It happened to us on the news station the other day. I mean, it was like the whole thing was about directional fabric, and then they cut to me, and I said, our competitors are jealous because they're losing market share.
That's all they use.
That's it. That's all they use. So
right.
It made us look like, yeah, we have directional fabric, and they're just crying because we're taking market share, which totally isn't the case. Our broom is 100% good to go. It's going to pass whatever test they want to do with it. We do whatever they do. We just do it a little bit better. And that's all it is. So let me go back to the quote again. Okay? New technology in any sport generates debate between those who embrace it and the purists who don't like messing with tradition. We've heard the argument that the high-tech broom head is cheating. We're not buying it. Dean, if somebody called you a cheater for using this particular broom head, what would you do in their shoes? In your shoes, what would you say to them?
Well, I don't think. First of all, I don't think. I mean, the teams that used it are great. That are using it are great teams. So I don't think. I've never thought they were cheating with it. Okay, but
They were called cheaters? What if I would tell you they were called cheaters by two teams? How would you react to that?
Well,
if you were in that room, would you have stood up and said, "Okay, let's not push things here," or would you have gone with the crowd and signed off and said, "Yeah, you know what? Maybe you are going to be considered a cheater," because when anybody tars and feathers a hardline athlete, I take things personally. I really do.
Well, look, I think
it was unjustified. They did nothing wrong. The broom is good to go. If you're bringing out a broom to prove a point, there are better ways of proving a point. And that's by testing, by taking the time to test.
No, I think emotions are running high. I mean, I think that's, I think it's like, a lot of these things. I mean, I think you're talking about athletes who invest a lot of time and resources in the game, and the stakes are probably higher than they've been in a while. But at the same time, you're not talking about athletes who are making like $5 million a year just for showing up at stuff. So I think the stakes are high and emotions are high, and I'm not entirely sure. I know some of the things that were said. I guess one of the things I wonder is why are some of the guys, the hardline teams, why did they agree to not to the letter that came out via Nolan and the other players?
This is concerning the letter from the other players?
Yeah, why did teams like McEwen and Carruthers sign on to that agreement, I guess, is what I'm wondering. I mean, were they pressured? What happened?
What does the letter say exactly? Do you remember?
Well, yeah, it says
what do they want to restrict?
Directional fabric, right? I understand that.
And what broom was used with directional fabric during that spiel?
Yeah, the Balance Plus Blackhead. I understand that too, which,
That's what signed. So what is the problem here with the players? Why is everybody ganging up on these players? What happened behind the scenes, Dean, is that there was blackmail going on, is what it was, because what they said was they were ruining the ice. You couldn't follow a shot down because there was a trough that the rock would go in and it wouldn't come back. And it was, they were asked to get the brooms off the ice, and they said, there's no way we're gonna stop playing. There's no way. Unless you guys stop playing with your ice pads or change covers or do whatever it is you're gonna do, we're gonna keep playing until you guys do. You guys want to take this to the slam? That's okay with us. So now if you're in a player's position, would you take your broom off for the good of the game so those monstrosities wouldn't be on TV and make a laughing stock out of this great game?
Right. I can understand that.
We have the public's support right now. We've had 4 years of no complaints. We had worldwide sales. We're in over 100 pro shops. One spiel with those brooms, you have 100% unanimous disapproval of the use of that broom. And somehow we're tied into that. Is that logical to you?
Well, no, but I think the flip side is that those brooms were intended to demonstrate how far things could go if there are no standards were put in place, right? I mean, I mean they're out of service at this point, right? What I think it was a bit of a cudgel when a scalpel might have done the job, but
right.
But at the same point, I don't know.
They're illegal. Those brooms are illegal. They had no business on the ice. On top of that,
no, but the only point I'd make there, Archie, I don't think any broom is illegal at this point. I mean, what illegal by what standards? I mean, that's the point. Is I don't see any standards.
There's a rule that says you can't damage the ice, and those brooms were definitely damaging the ice.
I know, but the flip side of that would be that the hardline, somebody else would say that the hardline brooms damage the ice. So with no standards in place,
prove it. Every broom damages the ice. The hardline brooms damage the least of all the brooms out there. The least. If we're going on a scale of 1 to 10, the hardline broom damages the ice maybe a 3. These were like a 10.
Right. No, I agree. The blackheads were like that. Yeah.
But Dean, this isn't even a point of illegal. This is a question of sportsmanship. What this sport, the foundation of the sport was built on is sportsmanship and ethics. Why would you bring out a broom like that? Why wouldn't you just go to the governing bodies and say, listen, last year, these brooms were out of control. They were ruining the ice. Where are the complaints to the associations? Like, did you go, like the second week of September to say, we've got complaints about these brooms. I mean, and you expect people to believe that? Really?
Well, my understanding is that players did go to Curling Canada last year and say that.
When?
I'm not exactly sure when. I'm not going to tell you I know exactly when, but that was my understanding that it was raised last year with, that what the Hardline brooms, I guess, and what people thought was happening with them. So I don't think it wasn't raised. By my understanding, it did go to them. I mean, I see both points here. I can see your point that, I mean, but even when obviously if there are people who feel your product is somehow different than should be allowed, then they're going to have the same questions about sportsmanship and everything else too, right? I mean, I think the worst thing is I think all this could have been resolved if we had equipment standards and testing in place 10, 15 years ago. I don't, then you would have developed your brush. And I think originally, I don't think you intended anything with the fabric. In fact, the first videos I saw when you had stuff on YouTube was, I thought, a good idea. It basically seemed like this fabric, you wouldn't have to change your head every 3 games, and I thought that seemed like a great idea. But I don't think you really had a process to go through to say, hey, here's the brush I developed. Can I get your stamp of approval on it?
But we did get the stamp of approval 3 times, Dean.
Right.
3 times. They also ordered the replacements for it like a year later for their high performance camp or whatever it was. So we've done all that.
But why doesn't Curling Canada come out right now, or the World Curling Federation say, yeah, we approve this?
Well, that's up to them to answer. We were supposed to meet them. We're supposed to be going up to Gatineau this weekend. We said we're going to pass by and drop in or whatever. And then this whole thing came up, and we emailed them and said, listen, we got to talk to you like ASAP because this thing's spiraling out of control. Well, it's not really my thing. You should speak with a representative of the Slam. So he ended up calling me, and I'm trying to accommodate everybody, but you know what? My window of my time frame is so short. I mean, is that even fair? So we're going up on Thursday. He said, email me as we get closer to the date. And he said, well, I've got really nothing new to add. Excuse me. There's a crisis going on here.
Yeah, I totally empathize with you there. You're in an awful spot as a business, and I think, actually, I kind of think most brush makers are right now because all this is really going to do until it gets resolved, I think, is might keep people from buying any brush because they're wondering which one they should buy. But
that's not true. As I'll tell you something. We have had a show of support like crazy, hundreds of emails, texts, whatever. But the best is that the orders have just picked up. And I just got a call this morning, and he said, I know what's going on, and I was kind of humming and hawing about what broom I was going to buy. I kind of wanted to buy yours, but after what's been going on, I'm definitely buying yours. So I was like, wow. I even told the guy, I said, I'm about to cry here. So the support has been truly amazing. We know we've got the support of people, and I think if there's ulterior motives for what's going on, I think it's going to backfire. Everybody sees through this. Everybody. The only people that don't are those who, support the other company.
Well, let me ask you this. What would you think about a rule change that prevented a team from switching heads throughout a game? I mean, one of the things we've heard is where people have said they want a sharper head and they'll switch to a sharper head for different shots. What would you say about that?
I would have zero problem with that. Zero. Right. I'd even tell you that whenever a sweep was called, you'd have to put 2 sweepers to work. I would even say that.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with that, you could have one guy just dusting, right? Not really you. And how would you mandate whether he was sweeping hard or not?
But even if they're dusting, do you want the rock which side do you want to go harder? sweepers don't know that, do they? I mean, I don't know.
Well,
I'm not that good to make
right.
But
I mean, I think we could see a situation where we go back to old school and we'd see two sweepers on one side. So, switching back and forth. I mean, I could see that. So
I just think across from each other would straighten out any, I don't know. I don't even know what you'd call it. Guiding of the rock or whatever. I mean, our rocks, our ice pads keep a rock straight. There's been exaggerations on the videos that you can make it fall 6 feet. I mean, that's not going to happen. I don't care who you are. You're not going to make that happen. So it's, Dean, there's so many alternatives to what went on. I feel bad for my guys. This has been such a huge distraction for no reason. And it's only a few guys who are pushing it. And I'm shocked. So many people on that list. I'm not going to say so many. That's not true. Maybe 5 people on that list asked us for sponsorship this past summer. If you think that a broom should be restricted or a fabric should be restricted, why are you asking us for sponsorship? We're a small company. I can't sponsor everybody who asks.
Right.
But now you turn around, you sign the paper for directional fabric, and then all of a sudden, the ice pad gets thrown in, and then a team, and I haven't read this letter, I was just told, and they said, don't ever read the letter because you will go crazy. A letter was sent by a specific team saying that these fabrics have no place in curling, and that should be banned at every club level. Forget about the elites. At every club level. And the team that sent this, I was in shock. Again, I haven't read the letter. I was just told
right.
just a few things because they said the person that told me said it was the most disgusting, vile piece of garbage he's ever read. And if that's what curling has come to, that we're going to start, doing things for our sponsors, and you're going to go that low, sport's in trouble, my friend.
Well, at the end of the day here, isn't the crux of it becomes everybody's in favor of no directional fabric, and your position is that your brushes aren't directional fabric anyway. Isn't that sort of the debate right now? Isn't that the crux of it?
Well, that's the debate, and everybody's asking, well, why did your team sign the paper? Well, they signed the paper to get the other brushes out of the game.
Well, I don't think the other brushes were ever going to stay. I don't think that anybody thought that they were going to last.
Ethically, no player would ever buy that brush. Ethically, just for sportsmanship, for curling, just to not ruin the name. Not ruin the name, not ruin the game. Nobody would ever buy that brush. That was brought out for one reason and one reason only, was to cause this stink to get the ice pads out of play. Plain and simple.
Well, shouldn't the process then be to have somebody determine if your fabric is directional or not? Then we just say, well, it's not directional or it is directional. It conforms or it doesn't.
Have you ever seen an ice pad, Dean? Ever?
Yeah, I've seen it. Of course I have. I've used them.
Okay, so have you read?
I mean, I've tried them. I've tried them. Yeah.
Okay. Have you ever run your finger on top of it?
Yeah. I know that's the weft versus warp or whatever you're supposed to be thinking about. And it's supposed to it's supposed to feel the same in both ways is what I've understood is as much as I can glean, and I don't profess to be any kind of a fabric expert.
Was it the same?
Frankly, yeah, I couldn't tell. I couldn't note a difference with my finger. I'd be honest with that. But I don't know if I'm the guy to be doing the testing, right? I'm not the. I don't think my stamp of approval is gonna solve anything for. If I say I don't know if it's directional, I mean, I just think we need somebody else to do it.
Dean, that's fine. That's fine. How about this as an easy test? Go get your pad. Go get an ice pad. Go get another supplier's pad. Put them side by side. Run your fingers across. You tell me if they feel the same. Each one's got its little
quirks.
So do it. And if they feel the same going across, then this debate is over. I mean, there's nothing to talk about. Why would you, in such a hurry, try and take a piece of fabric out? Why? There's no reason for it. There's no reason for it other than to cause a little bit of, anyway, I'm not going to say it.
I mean, I understand the frustration all around, to be honest. I really do. I think, again, I'm not trying to debate Hardline versus Balance Plus or Gold Line or anybody else who's involved in this, and Arnold. I just think that if we're down to sitting here talking about whether, my fingernail can detect any difference, we're like about 10 years behind here. We needed to be on top of this. Our sports bodies needed to be on this. And if the concern is that the World Curling Federation is too conflicted or Curling Canada's too busy, I don't know. I just think that somebody's got to get on top of this and resolve it one way or another. And quite honestly, it has to be done in a way that doesn't unfairly impact your business either. I mean, I certainly can't. You can't come out and say these brushes are banned, right? I mean, but I could see them coming out and saying these are acceptable fabrics. There was a team in the Spiel I was at this weekend, a junior team that had some other kind of fabric on their brushes. And I asked them what it was, and they were using different fabric throughout the game. And I don't think they were cheating. I don't even think they knew what they were doing with it, except that they thought it was good fabric. But again, I think going forward, you probably can't just show up with any fabric you found or got or whatever. That's all. So I just think there has to be some standards, and it can't just be, certainly I'm not the one to decide. If I think that, I don't know what it is, but straight up, when I saw how Team Gushue was sweeping, I knew something was going to come out of that. I was like, this is not, this is odd. It's odd looking, and there's going to be debate about it. And in fact, I even almost went back in and edited my ebook on brushing because I thought, I got to include this now. So I don't know what that is, but I think that was sort of the tipping point for a lot of people.
Well, again, these guys practice so many things, and just because they're sweeping, one sweeper end to end, what difference does it make if you're sweeping one guy or two guys and then you switch it when you get inside the house? I mean, this is what works for them. It won't work for everybody. It won't work for Carruthers. It won't work for Laycock. Sometimes they'll use two hair brooms. Every team practices different things, and these guys are going to use or do whatever's best for them. I don't know what else to say. It's gotten, the brooms aren't that magical. We offer the competitive advantage. We've said it from day one. But you know what? 5 years ago, that little paragraph that I read to you before, new technology in any sport generates debate. That's from 5 years ago when the new head came out at that time.
Right, when the EQ head came out.
Right.
Yeah.
So to say we have, a lot of people have been saying we have an unfair advantage. Simply not true. Nothing unfair about it. If you want the same advantage, buy one. Just because we don't sponsor your team, all you need is two. All you need is two. There's one supplier, I'm going to have to mention his name, Arnold Asham, who he basically told his players, do whatever you think is going to help you win. Asham sponsors these guys, and yet they use the ice pad. Doesn't that say something? doesn't that say something about the integrity of the guy? I mean, that's like amazing.
Well, what do you think it says about his integrity? I'm a little confused, actually.
It means that he cares more about his players than using them as advertisements for, well, they use my brush head. You understand? It's like,
but I could also make an argument that the spirit of the game, he's sort of saying you got to do what you got to do, and yeah, I don't know. I mean, I mean, I've always admired Arnold, and I know that he has thoughts. I mean, one of the things he always says is that each player should probably handle their own equipment, endorse, product stuff. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think I think it's a great brush. I think it's effective. I think the question is what's maximum effectiveness? Where have we reached it? Are we too far? And again, that's not for me to decide. And I don't think. And again, I think it should have been decided some time ago. And we may not have reached the point of what's too effective, or we have. I'm not really sure.
Dean, the only thing I'm going to tell you is this. There have been 2 brushes, actually 3, that have been developed since 1995. Okay? Arnold Asham had one of them. It was called the Boomerang. There's been the Ice Pad. And then there was the oval brush that basically changed curling.
Right.
Back in the day.
Andre Ferlin, and performance brush.
Well, that's not 100% true. That's not 100% true, Dean. I'm going to give you a little bit of history here. The guy that invented the Ice Pad invented the oval brush. He used to work for Mr. Ferlin.
Okay.
So he's a real inventor of the oval brush. A lot of people don't know that. That's why a lot of people aren't giving the Ice Pad the respect it deserves, because they think it was developed by, some farmer. The man who developed it has got 22 patents to his name. He's an inventor. Whatever our competitors want to come out with, we're going to do one better because we have an inventor. So it's...
I don't discount the fact that you guys are innovative. I think everything you've done has been innovative. The brush design is innovative. I think the way you marketed it, I think the things on Dragon's Den were innovative. I have a ton of respect for that. I guess my question is posed to the governing bodies, and that's how innovative is too innovative. I mean, I think tennis almost lost their sport when they didn't get ahead of the racket revolution, and it became a game of smashing serves and power, and there was no more not many volleys anymore, and there still aren't. So I just don't want to see our game transformed, and I don't know, I don't have all the questions of what's transforming, but yeah, I mean, I'm all for innovation, but again, I think we're a little light on the process here, and I think we need to get that resolved for the sake of anybody who's making equipment. I think it would be an advantage. I mean, I think it's unfair to people who are making equipment that there's no real defined process.
Okay, but Dean, in that regard, why is it good for one supplier to create a brush, market it as it's a competitive advantage, but now when we have it, it's like, oh, no, that's too effective. Well, why is that? Is that something logical in your eyes? I understand where you're coming from, like how good is good, but we've got an advantage. It's not, we went from, let's say, a 2 to a 3, maybe a 4. I'll let it go at that. But, these guys are making it seem like, no, that's too much. Well, you know what? We came out with a better mousetrap, and there's some people who aren't happy about it. That's all. I mean, I don't know what else to tell you. It's with everything that goes on behind the scenes that you don't know about. I mean, you're going to take that?
Yeah, let me just hang it up. Hang on one sec. Sorry, it's my other phone.
Is that?
Yeah, it's just ringing in the back. It'll stop in a minute here. Make it feel more homespun. But look, all I'd say is, look, I don't think there's a how this has been handled all around, I think is probably not the greatest all around. And like I say, I think you came out with a great product. I think there's a debate going on that needs to be resolved. And don't think I'm the guy to do it, but I'm glad we had a chance to talk like this, because I think we've talked for about 50 minutes. And like you always said,
Really?
like you said, yeah, I think so. Like you said earlier, you can get their sound bites and everything else, and tweets and everything else. And what I like about this is it was a longer conversation. So, I think it's a lot of the stuff you said is unfair to your company. So and I'm a business guy, and I'd be frustrated too right now is what it, and yeah, I think you're a great innovator. So I think now it's up to people who whether it's the players working with the governing bodies to figure this out.
Well, what would you do if you were in my position?
I don't know. I guess the only thing I do is I'd say, well, I don't think the fabric is directional, but I'm going to change it anyways. Screw you. That's what I guess that's what I'd say. I'd say there's brushes out there, and maybe I'd want to get somebody to, I'm sure there's investment in fabric, so I'd be ticked about that. But I guess that's probably what I would say, because I'd say I think I got a better product no matter what. So.
Okay, well, that's what we are saying.
Yeah.
We do have a better product no matter what. But my concern is, why should I have 3 days to change my fabric? What sport? I think this may be the only sport, probably ever, where we've changed equipment mid-season.
Yeah. Well, I totally agree with you that the timing of it all does not work. I mean, you need to phase these things in. You need to say this by X, and you need to give a manufacturer enough time. So I don't disagree with you that a 3-day edict is not feasible. I don't disagree at all with that.
And the other first for curling, from any other sport, it's the players are going to decide what's going to be played with at the elite level. Like, what? Really? The players are going to decide? Oh, okay. So let's take a vote. We have 3 hardline teams, and we have 20 other teams there. Let's take a vote. Yeah, that seems pretty fair.
Well, I don't know if it'll be a straight up vote or anything, to be honest, though. I think that the hardline teams are all very, very top tier teams. So I think they're respected by the other players. So I think there will be some debate. I don't see a day where there's a straight up vote of the players and that's what happens. I mean, I think certainly in golf, players were consulted on equipment. So I don't know. I don't, as players always want some say in these things. But, when I had Marc Kennedy on, he said they were looking for guidance from Curling Canada or the World Curling Federation. And that's who I really think where it goes to. I mean, I'm aware of your concerns about the World Curling Federation, but I think that's probably where it has to fall in the end. And somehow it has to be fair and balanced and independent.
Well, that's it. That's all we're asking for. And again, we're going to pass whatever test they want to put it through.
Yeah.
We're going to pass as long as we have perimeters of what's acceptable and what's not. We're not going to say, well, you should be able to keep a rock straight for 50 feet only. Because if you keep it for 49 feet, let's say, then we're good to go. You can't come out and say, oh, you went 49 feet. No, that's too long. Sorry. You can't say that. Tell us what it can't do, and then we'll take it from there. And if the other brushes can't meet up, I want the other brushes out.
Totally agree. Totally agree with all that.
And not only that, but you're asking for, not only the supplier to supply the players with new pads. I stayed up 2 nights in a row till 3 a.m. getting them done for these guys. And then we figured out that you could probably just flip it inside out and you'd have the fabric ready to go. But that's another story. But
right.
It's like you're asking these players to play with brand new equipment that they're not used to at these high-level competitions. Whatever happened to sportsmanship and fairness and all that? Whatever happened? You set the guidelines, you test later. These guys basically have been given a guilty verdict, and they haven't even opened their mouth to give their defense. So, again, I'm going to say it again. This was pushed by two teams. Well, there was, I think, 6 or 7 at that spiel, but it was two teams who were the most vocal. And it's really, really disappointing. Like, really disappointing. It was, I don't know. I don't know if it's jealousy or these concerns should have been raised last year. That's all. That's all I was asking for. If there was a change that was needed, we would have made the change over the summer. We wouldn't have been scrambling. And, it would have been over. That's it. But really, 3 days, who does that?
All right, Archie, I don't disagree with you on 3 days, but I'm going to wrap it up here. So I think we've covered a lot. I'm probably going to post this as soon as I can. And you were recording it too, so you'll know what it is, but I don't like to edit. It takes too long, so it's going to go up as it is. So, all right.
Beautiful.
Thanks for your time, Archie, and good.
Come back to Montreal once in a while, huh?
I love Montreal. I'd like to get back. Would have never left if I could have figured out how to stay there. All right.
We got an ice pad with your name on it.
All right. Thanks, Archie. Take care. Bye-bye.
Cheers.
That's Archie Manavian on The Curling Show. Remember, brush like a badass. Search for it on Amazon.com. And for American curlers, the USA package. Find links to that. A trip to the 2016 Brier with your fellow American curlers. Going to be a great time. There are links in the show notes at thecurlingshow.com to the appropriate website where you can purchase tickets, or just contact me for more information if you want to do that. And, of course, you can always follow me on Twitter. I'm at Dean Gemmel. You'll find me tweeting about curling. You'll find information when I post a new interview here in this podcast. I usually tweet about it, and a few other things as well you'll find on my Twitter feed. Like most Twitter feeds, what you won't find are pictures of the Kardashians, usually. But anyways, follow me on Twitter at Dean Gemmel. As always, thanks for listening. Here's the band that I still love, even since 2005. I've loved them. Black Pudding.
You go to work every day. You blend into the crowd. But in the silence of night, he's got to live it loud. Behold the sight of the form of the night. And you try